Hi guys, I hope you're all doing well. So in my last video I got a comment from someone asking if I had any advice for the CSM foundation. So this is a foundation diploma, a fashion foundation diploma at a art school called Central St Martin's School of Art and Design in London, for those of you who don't know. So yeah, she asked if I had any tips on how to survive it and whether I had any tips for living in London. So I thought I'd do like a chit chat Q&A video, just kind of like summing that all up as much as I can. But also I wanted to do it because I think over the last 2 years I've had about 40 to 50 questions on Instagram, on YouTube comments, on email from like various people asking like advice for applying and you know what the course actually contains and like all this kind of stuff. So I thought it would be easier just for me to direct you to this video. So I hope that you find it helpful and I hope you enjoy it. Also, I don't want to force you into following all of this advice. This is just my opinion. It's probably like a bit extensive, but just take what you want from it. Honestly, my mouth is not God. Like, this is just me and my experience. So I think I was about 15 when I decided I wanted to go to St Martin's. I've always been interested in clothes and how clothes are made, and I've like from the early ages of about 5 I can remember just doing drawings of dresses when I didn't even know you could be a designer at that point. I just love clothes, love dressing up, loved everything, but I didn't really realise you could kind of have it as a job until I was in secondary school. So when it got to the time where I had to like choose my options for GCSEs and whatnot, I researched like a number of successful designers, and I noticed that most of them had graduated from this place called Central St Martin's. So I became curious in that and I looked at like a few like world ranking tables, and pretty much every time St Martin's is at the top. It is one of the most well-renowned fashion schools in the world. I don't know what that's based on, but pretty much anyone you meet in the fashion industry, they will tell you that as well. So because I wanted to aim higher, I wanted to go there and set myself up in the best way I could for a fashion career. I also had a friend, well, a family friend. She went to St Martin's, I think in the 80s. She went straight to Italy after she graduated. She had her own sportswear brand. She earned loads of money from that. She came back here, had her own brand in London. She even lived with Marc Jacobs in a flat in New York for a couple of years. So that's really cool. So yeah, I just like speaking to her just really inspired me and I really wanted to go to this place called St Martin's. So yeah, that's sort of what fueled my interest in applying. So yeah, that's a little intro about my interest in the place. My friend Abby has also done a video about like applying and the whole process and stuff, so I will link that in the description because it's quite informative, probably better than mine. But anyway, yeah, so check that out as well if you'd like an alternative perspective on the place. So tip number 1 is do your research. Before you invest like all of this time and money and effort into this course, make sure that it's right for you, and also make sure you haven't closed your mind to other options. There are so many really good foundations out there. It's a good course, but I wouldn't say that the other courses in the country are inferior to it in terms of like teaching, quality and blah blah. So yeah, so I say if CSM is your first choice, make sure you have other backup options just in case you don't get in. I applied to Kingston as well. I applied to Falmouth. I applied to Cardiff. I think I applied to Bournemouth as well. And also like my local college. So yeah, open your mind, don't just put all your eggs in one basket. Also, it's important to remember that going to CSM, whether you're doing foundation, degree, whatever, in whatever, doesn't mean that you're guaranteed to be successful. Like, it's not so much about the place. At the end of the day, it's about you, how individual you are and your uniqueness and your drive to succeed and grow. There are so many people that have graduated from Central St Martin's that you probably never heard about. You know, just try and like put things into perspective a bit and just remind yourself that you're worth it and you can be successful without even a grade or like a university. Like just like try put things into perspective a bit. I know sometimes when you do have goals it's really hard, but if you really think about it, it's not the end. Like, CSM is a fantastic place. I do not regret applying there. I do not regret the fact that I got in and I've put money into this and time into this. But yeah, there are other options, and it's really not the end of the world. I know that's easy for me to say because I'm in the place, but really think about it, put it into perspective. Like, you can still be successful. What I would say is though, with the foundation, we noticed that if you do the foundation at CSM, you're probably more likely to get into the BA because, you know, you've been trained within the uni, you've been taught by tutors who are colleagues with people who teach on the BA course. So they really nurture you and they really know exactly what the BA tutors want. So I'd say it probably increased my chances of getting into BA. I think that if I went somewhere else, you know, there are thousands and thousands and thousands of people that apply to the BA externally, and some people just get missed. Some people don't even get an interview, they just read their personal statement, and if, you know, you're not so good at writing, well, that's it then. So like, I would definitely say that if you get onto the foundation, your chances are increased. But then again, it's not necessarily the case, because we have about 10 people in our knitwear class that were from other colleges around the UK. So yeah, that is one thing to bear in mind. And that's really the reason why I applied to CSM Foundation in particular, was because I wanted to progress onto the bachelor's degree. So tip number 2 is to start early. I think as soon as you know where you want to apply, and in this case, if you're watching this, it's probably CSM, so I'd say start early. Immerse yourself in books, with film, anything fashion related. Try and learn as much as you can. Go out, experience the world, speak to new people, go to like weird gigs, go to exhibitions around the country, learn to know what you like and what you don't like in terms of art and fashion and everything else. And yeah, just make it like your world and your day-to-day life, because if you do that, you will start to build up a huge bank of inspiration in your head, ideas, experiences, blah blah blah, and this will just make your creative process so much more unique and individual to you, and so much more like exciting and enriched. Like, you don't want to just be basing all your projects on Google Images. Like, some of it can be personal experience, some of it, yeah, like just become the work you want to create almost. The other reason why I say to start early is the sooner you start with your portfolio, the better. I think I started my portfolio, and again this might sound crazy, but I'm so glad I did it, about 9 months in advance. Just like deep that for a second. Like, that's because I was like, I don't know, I just did it because I just wanted to make it the best I could. But I didn't really put anything, half of the stuff I made over that 9-month period I didn't actually put in. It was more about just creating more work and just like getting better and better at what I did, so that I had loads of stuff to choose from and I could just extract the best things from everything I created. I set aside about 1 hour per week to do my portfolio. That was like a solid hour, Friday morning I think it was, or maybe I can't remember, but every time it got to that day I was like, right, I'm going to force myself to sit down and just do something to contribute to this portfolio, to contribute to my skill set, and I'm so glad I did it. But I don't think I really started to put the full like portfolio sheets together until about a month and a half before the interview. Because I was quite a perfectionist at the time, I didn't really want to rush it and leave it to last minute, so I sort of like forced myself to do it really early. But then I know people who did it like the week before and still got in, so it just know what works best for you really. But I think to save yourself the stress, like, start early and just don't leave it to last minute if you can help it. Obviously if you made something really cool like the week before the interview, then chuck that in, but I wouldn't say do all the sheets like a couple days before, like that's just so stressful. One thing I will mention is for the external students who were applying to the foundation diploma and hadn't done like a short course or a insights course or whatever, you guys, we didn't get an interview, like a face-to-face speaking to a tutor interview. It was just taking our portfolios, dropping them off, coming back 7 hours later and being told like a month later whether we got in or not. So it really is about like the visuals. The visuals are so important. Make it look good, and don't think that you can talk you into it, because you really can't, unless you do like an insights course or some sort of course that actually makes you have an interview. Abby will talk about that in her video. So portfolio. For my portfolio, I took, I think it was around 20 A2 sheets along, and four sketchbooks, A3 sketchbooks, and a little mini sketchbook that I filmed a video about. I'll link that below as well. I did that because I thought that's what they would have wanted, just from reading like blogs and stuff. But honestly, like when I went, there were so many different sizes. Someone even bought trust me, someone bought a little sketchbook this big, and that's all they bought. Like God knows if they got in or not, but the variety was like huge. For me, I'd never worked on A2 before, but I think it was really good because I'd always been used to working in like a small book. I think it's important to show that you can work in different scales, because with fashion, everything's a different scale. I think it's important to think about the details, like, you know, like buttons and pockets and various components on the garment, but also like the overall silhouette and how big it is and where it hugs the body and where it's like loose on the body. So if you can maybe photograph things that you've done that are big, like on a bigger scale, even if that means putting that in like an A3 portfolio, that's cool. But yeah, just show that you can work on big and small scales. I think that's quite a cool thing, and show that you can work in different media. Don't just bring a portfolio full of fashion illustrations. Do mix up a bit, show how creative you are, show that you can do sculpture, show that you can do photography, show that you can, I don't know, make really, really cool cakes, really, really weird cakes, I don't know, just make yourself seem really interesting and really well informed about all kinds of art practices. You could show your inspiration in the form of collage, you can show inspiration in the form of like mind maps and first-hand photography, drawing from life, creating different marks, ripping up bits of paper and chucking it on a page, see what happens, and then photocopying that and drawing over it, creating prints from that, putting them on garments. Like, don't just do a photo, a drawing, like it's so boring. Like, make it interesting, make it like a scrapbook full of you, a scrapbook full of your thoughts and your processes, and don't make it neat. Like, don't be afraid to put things like mistakes and stuff in it, because they want to see what the journey is like. I promise you that I personally feel like it was my sketchbooks that got me in, because it was like packed full of experiments and textile samples, and just like pack it out, just show them like how many ideas you have. But of course, with the actual portfolio, make sure that's presented neatly and clear. Yeah, it's the sketchbooks that really, it's okay for them to be in chaos. And also make it personal to you. Make sure you're enthusiastic about it. Don't bother copying other people. There's no point in doing it. You'll be found out eventually. No one respects someone who copies. You want to create stuff that you like and stuff that you're passionate about and stuff you can talk about. And yeah, like, don't copy. Like, what's the point? So that's pretty much summed up my tips for applying. So I'm going to now talk about advice for whilst on the foundation, and this doesn't just go for CSM. I'm sure this advice could apply to any other foundation course in the country. I know that foundations in general are quite fast paced and quite intense, and they're not always like the most smooth years to go through. So yeah, I think like I could have really done with this advice before I did my foundation, so hopefully you'll find this helpful as well. So number one from me is to make the most of it. The foundation is so fast paced, it will go so quickly, especially if you're not doing it in a local college and you're doing it like in a bigger city or somewhere else in the country. Like, completely throw yourself into it. make sure you work really hard, try loads of things out, do loads of experiments, make mistakes, learn, grow, because that's what foundation is all about. In terms of CSM, we had 3 days in uni, and then the rest of the week was self-study at home. So you learn to become very independent and very self-sufficient. That's not for everyone, but I think it's really important to have those skills, because when you're out of uni, you're not going to have anyone to help you. You're going to have to like be your own boss and do your own thing generally if you want to like set up your own business or whatever. So creativity isn't something that can be taught to you, like it comes from you. So yeah, that's one thing about CSM. I know a lot of people don't like the fact that at CSM we don't really see the tutors as much as perhaps we would like to. So you'll probably come out of the course and they won't really know your name. But at the same time, I think it's important to get to know the tutors, to really make an effort to speak to them, get feedback from them, because they're gonna be the ones to give you really honest advice. They know, they're the experts. So I'd suggest getting to know the tutors and creating a good impression from the start, because the fashion industry is largely based on reputation and who you are. And I know that we were told when we first started BA that our reputation starts the moment you walk into the doors of CSM, and that applies to anywhere, any workplace, you know. So I think that's one thing to remember. I know that it could probably be quite easy to hide from the tutors because they're really honest, sometimes maybe quite harsh, but at the end of the day, most of them are doing out of love and they just want to see you be the best creator that you can be. So I'd say be humble, take on advice, and you never know, it might change and broaden your thinking in a way that you've never thought of before. I know for me, my first progress tutorial, my tutor said, "You're playing it too safe, take more risks." So I took more risks and I ended up having a lot more fun doing it. So, but also like different teachers will tell you different things, so you do have to be a little bit independent and a little bit more selective about what you take in. But generally they know what they're talking about, so I'd say try and just get as much feedback as you possibly can. Also, it's important to learn to be able to take criticism, because you're going to get a lot of it in the fashion industry. The art world, the creative world, is not an easy industry. So yeah, might as well start now, learn to build up a thick skin now, and yeah, and it's all good, like criticism, bad criticism, good criticism, whatever, like it's gonna help, you know. Number 2 is connect with people. I'd say most of the year I probably learned more from my peers than I did the tutors. The tutors sort of told me what I already knew really, but like in terms of like inspiration for art topics or techniques, most of that was from each other, and most of the motivation I got was from my other classmates. I had some classmates that would stay up for like an all-nighter, and for me, I'd never done that before I got to uni. I never have had an all-nighter for anything like work related. But that's like pretty much the norm now, which is unfortunate, but sometimes if you've got deadlines you just got to do it. Any uni student can relate to that. But yeah, so like connecting with friends, chilling out with them, you know, being inspired, seeing London with them was really helpful. Like I wouldn't recommend to anyone to just like sit in the library all day every day on their own, because that's boring. Like you learn a lot more from people than you do books, I think. And also it was brilliant to be finally in an environment where everyone cared about art. Coming from a sixth form in quite a rural area where most people were taking art because it's like an easy subject or it's just like a filler, like that was quite draining for me. I felt like very out of place wanting to do a creative subject as a career. So yeah, it was just amazing to just be around so many like-minded people. Before I went to CSM, I sort of had this stupid thing in my head where I thought everyone would be stuck up. I thought I wouldn't make friends with anyone, and of course like you do get like the few characters, but you know that ultimately makes CSM like such an interesting place because there's so many different characters from all over the world, different cultures, different countries, different subgroups. But yeah, you will find friends. Like, I found friends quite quickly. And also like get feedback from each other, get your friends to critique your work. I think that's the best way really, because generally they'll deliver it in a way that is constructive and not destructive. So every week we would have, it was every Thursday, usually we'd have the brief on the Friday, we'd have the weekend, then the Monday to just make a start. Sometimes we even got the brief on the Monday, and then we'd have until Thursday to do everything we needed to do a sketchbook, sometimes even make a garment. And then Thursday afternoon we would all put our books out on the tables, and then everyone would go around, look at each other's work, and yeah, just give each other feedback. And that was really cool because it helped you get used to like this idea of being like critiqued for your work. And yeah, it really helps you to become like less sensitive about it and just more like, you see it as more of like you start to see criticism as a good thing and not a bad thing, which is really good. What I did anyway. My third tip is to not be afraid. Like I mentioned earlier, before I went to CSM, I just had this like crazy fear that I would never fit in, I'd be so different from everybody else, I'd be a loner in the corner. Like, that did not happen. Like, some of the most amazing people I've met at CSM, like friends I will have for life, best friends that I will have for life. So yeah, like, don't be afraid. You will find someone that you can relate to. So many, like I said, so many different people from all over the world, from all different backgrounds. There's bound to be someone. For me at the time, I was really interested in a certain like branch of religion, and the first day I met someone else who was interested in that branch of religion. It's like quite a rare branch of religion. So I was like, cool, I found someone already. Like, and that was like probably like literally the stars were looking out for me then. But anyway, you will find someone, trust me. And don't be afraid as well to experiment with different styles of working. You might know how you work, get to CSM and realise that that's not for you anymore. You might change your mind like 4 weeks later. It's all about learning, trial and error, making mistakes, learning what works best for you. My style from A-levels is completely different from my style starting BA, and it's completely different now from when I started BA. So it's okay to grow and change, even like your own personal style as well. For me, my style has changed a lot, and that kind of unsettles me a bit, but if I really think about it, art school is the perfect time to do it. Art school is supposed to turn you upside down, it's supposed to challenge your thinking, it's supposed to broaden your mind, and that's really cool. Often the most creative people are people that are extremely open-minded. So yeah, I'd say just be curious and don't be afraid to do you. My friend Ella once said to me that some of the most successful people, the most famous people like, I don't know, Jimi Hendrix, Lady Gaga, whatever, whoever you think about, most of the most creative people were like weirdos, people that no one cared about, people that didn't belong to cliques, people that were like complete individuals. And that's cool. Be an individual, it's completely fine. Like, they didn't rely on anyone else for their success, they were the ones that aided their success. So tip number 4 from me is to stay up to date. Things at CSM, in terms of like timetables and organisation, is a bit volatile, so I'd say just stay up to date, read your emails, communicate with your classmates, set up a group chat, and then you're good. I missed a lot of things because I didn't stay up to date, and I regret that because I would get caught so sort of absorbed into a project that I would not like pay attention to the world. It would just be me and my book. But pay attention, it will save so much hassle. So one other thing I'd say about CSM is, depending on which kind, so how do I put this? Depending on who you encounter and who your friends are, generally I'd expect not much of a social life. And I say this because a lot of people at CSM are really focused and dedicated creative people that want to invest more time in their work than their social life perhaps. So certainly my circle of friends, if we like try and arrange a dinner, it never really happens because there's always like a deadline coming up. So for me, I tend to socialise with people who aren't in my uni, friends that I have in other unis around London, or people that I've met at events that aren't in my class, you know. I think that's still really important. Even though there are deadlines, I think it's still so important to go out and experience the city, meet new people, go to different places, because as I mentioned at the start, it's just going to really enrich your thinking and you'll become so inspired, and you may encounter a particular moment in time or a particular object in a place outside of your bedroom and your desk that you really find interesting and you really want to like experiment with and really want to like look into, and that's really cool. So yeah, I'd say try and just get a balance really, but also work really hard as well. And if it means having to stay up all night once a week, then do it, because everyone does it really. It's kind of bad, but like sometimes it's just got to be done. It's all part of the fun of it. So expect the course to be quite expensive. For me, I don't come from a particularly wealthy family, so relatively speaking, for me, it was a very, very expensive year. The foundation diploma isn't funded by the government. You don't get a loan because it's counted as further education and not higher education. So the summer before I started, I saved up about £2,000 to £3,000. I honestly worked every weekday for about 3 months, like solid. It was horrible, but I had to do it. So I saved up a couple grand from that. Also, you can apply for a bursary if your parents have under a certain income, and that's about £1,000, I believe. But largely my parents funded the course, and it was not easy for them. They had to make sacrifices, so just be aware about that. Living in London isn't cheap. You've got travel on top of food, really high rent prices, the cost of materials. I managed to get a grant from my local arts association for the materials, so that covered that. So do your research, see if there are any grants available from like your local college or your local art club or council or something like that. Also, I know that a few friends actually got some sort of grant from the council of Hackney to fund their like accommodation costs. I didn't manage to get that for some reason. They didn't let me for my particular borough that I was moving into. But it's worth a try. Just inquire about it. I'd recommend that. And be like really resourceful with your money. If money is a problem, like there are a lot of ways to make London life cheaper, which I will go into in my next video, because I realise that this is such a damn long video. It's just going to be like ridiculous. So yeah, I'm going to do another video all about like my tips for living in London, making it like as cheap as possible, because everyone loves good deals and everyone loves bargains and everyone likes to save money. But anyway, so yeah, that's going to be a separate video. So I hope I've addressed everything in this. It's probably been really rambly and probably boring if you're not interested in CSM, but for those of you who are interested, I hope you liked it. And yeah, if you've got any additional questions or queries that I haven't talked about, please comment below. And yeah, I wish you all the best if you're applying. Good luck. I hope you do well. It's not the end of the world if you don't get in. So yeah, thanks for watching. I'll see you soon.